The docking bay of Vera's capital station was alive with activity. Shining silver vessels from many species lined the platforms, and banners of different colors hung from the tall walls. It was the gathering place of leaders and envoys from across the sector, each one arriving to attend the annual council. For many, it was a chance to bargain for trade, to settle disputes, or to strengthen alliances. For Captain Rowan, it was another mission in a long career of exploration and diplomacy. Rowan stepped off his modest human ship and adjusted his dark uniform. Compared to the polished armor of the Zorans or the ceremonial robes of the Varans, his appearance was plain. Humans were still newcomers in the galaxy, often underestimated, but Rowan carried himself with steady confidence. He had been chosen to represent Earth not because of wealth or power but because of his skill in reading others and his patience in tense moments. The grand hall of the Varan Palace was breathtaking. The ceiling arched high like the sky itself, painted with scenes of stars and rivers. Golden light poured in from tall windows, casting long shadows across the polished floor. Guards in ornate armor stood along the walls, their eyes sharp but their movements disciplined. Musicians played soft instruments that sounded like flowing water, adding calm to the air. Rowan walked among delegates who towered over him, some with scaled skin, others with feathers or crystal-like features. A few gave him curious looks, for humans rarely had such a central place in council gatherings. Yet he ignored the stares, keeping his mind focused on the task ahead. As he moved closer to the center of the hall, a hush spread across the crowd. Rowan turned, confused by the sudden silence. From the far end of the chamber, a small figure ran forward. It was a young girl, no older than 12 by human measure. Her hair shimmered with silver strands that caught the light, and her eyes glowed with a soft blue radiance, traits common to the royal bloodline of Vera. She wore a light robe of white and gold, marking her as no ordinary child. The guards shifted but did not stop her. She rushed across the hall with surprising speed, ignoring the whispers rising from the audience. Before Rowan could react, she reached him, her small hands clutching his arm tightly. Her voice rang out clear and certain. "Father." The single word echoed through the chamber like a bell. Every eye turned toward them. Rowan froze, his mind struggling to process what had just happened. He looked down at the girl, her eyes wide with trust, her grip strong despite her size. "I do not know you, child," Rowan said gently, his voice low so as not to startle her. "I think you are mistaken." But the girl only held tighter. "You are my father." The visions were true. The hall erupted with murmurs. Delegates leaned toward one another, whispering quickly in their own languages. Some pointed at Rowan, others shook their heads in disbelief. The guards stiffened, uncertain whether to pull the girl away or let the scene unfold. Rowan's chest tightened. He was a man who had traveled far from Earth, seen strange worlds and stranger customs, but nothing in his experience prepared him for this moment. To be called father by an alien princess in the heart of her own palace was not something he could explain away easily. "Child," Rowan said again, his voice calm but firm, "I am not who you believe I am. I am from Earth. I have never been here before today." The girl lifted her chin proudly. "The seers told me you would come. A man of flesh unlike ours, with eyes that hold storms, would stand in this hall. They said he would guide me when the shadow falls. You are him. You are my father." The words carried weight, not just because of the child's conviction but because of who she was. Rowan realized with a sinking feeling that she was no ordinary child at all. The whispers around him confirmed it. This was Princess Elara, heir to the throne of Vera, the only daughter of the queen. The tension in the hall grew heavier. Delegates from rival worlds leaned forward, eager to seize on this strange declaration. Allies of Vero looked uncertain, some frowning as though insulted, others calculating the possible meaning. The guards seemed frozen, waiting for orders that had not yet come. Rowan felt the princess's hand trembling slightly against his arm. For all her boldness, she was still a child, and in her eyes he saw something deeper than politics. He saw longing, hope, and an unshakable belief that destiny had brought him here. He did not pull away. Instead, he placed a steady hand on her shoulder and spoke softly. "I will not harm you, princess. But we must speak with your mother. She will know the truth." At that moment, the great doors at the far end of the hall opened. A hush fell over the crowd once more, deeper than before. The Queen of Vera entered, tall and commanding, her robe flowing like liquid silver. Her crown shimmered with the glow of embedded gems, and her gaze was sharp as a blade. Every step she took was measured, her presence filling the hall like the rising tide. Her eyes locked onto Rowan and her daughter standing together. The musicians stopped playing. The whispers died completely. The air itself seemed to hold its breath. "Explain this," Queen Solana said, her voice carrying across the chamber. "Why does my daughter call a human stranger her father?" Rowan stood motionless, caught in a storm he had not chosen. Around him, the hall seemed to lean in closer, waiting for his answer. The princess clung to him still, unafraid, her voice steady though soft. "Because it is the truth," Elora said. "The stars sent him." The queen's eyes narrowed, not at her daughter but at Rowan. The weight of her gaze was like a test, pressing against him. In that moment, Rowan knew his life, his mission, and perhaps even the fate of his people now rested on what happened next. The hall was silent. The queen waited. The princess would not let go. Rowan drew a slow breath, his heart steady despite the storm around him, and prepared to speak. The silence of the hall stretched long after the queen spoke. Every delegate, every guard, and every servant kept their eyes fixed on Rowan. He felt the weight of hundreds of gazes pressing down on him. He had faced hostile fleets and storm-racked planets, but never a moment quite like this. The young princess still clung to his arm, her grip unshaken. Queen Solana's expression was calm, yet her eyes burned with questions. She stepped down the polished stairs of the throne platform, her robe trailing behind her like flowing water. Two guards followed her closely, their golden armor gleaming in the light. The queen stopped just a few paces from Rowan, her tall frame casting a shadow over him. "You are human," she said with quiet strength. "Your people have no ties of blood with ours. My daughter calls you father, yet you deny it. Tell me, Captain of Earth, why should I not take this as insult or trick?" Rowan bowed his head respectfully, though his voice remained steady. "Your Majesty, I mean no insult. I swear by my life I have never met your daughter before this day. I do not know why she calls me father. Yet I will not dismiss her words without understanding them." A murmur swept through the hall. Some delegates nodded as if impressed by his composure. Others scowled, convinced that the human sought to gain favor by weaving lies. The queen raised her hand, and silence returned. She turned her gaze to the princess. "Elora," she said firmly. "Why do you claim this man as your father?" The girl lifted her face with the same determination she had shown before. Her voice rang out clearly, reaching every corner of the chamber. "Because the visions told me so. The seers of Vera showed me the one who would guide me. A man not of our kind, whose eyes hold storms, would come from beyond the stars. He would stand beside me when danger rises. He would be my protector. He would be my father. Gasps filled the hall. The word of the seers carried deep power in Veyran culture. Their visions had guided the throne for centuries, warning of threats and promising hope. To deny them was unthinkable, yet to accept them blindly was dangerous. The queen studied her daughter carefully. Visions are often clouds, she said. They take shape only when time passes. Illyra, you may believe this man fits what was seen, but belief does not make truth. The princess did not look away. Truth is in my heart, mother. I know it when I see it. Rowan watched this exchange with quiet unease. He had no desire to be caught in prophecy or royal disputes, yet he could not ignore the girl's faith in him. Her eyes, bright with trust, reminded him of young cadets he had once trained, brave but uncertain, waiting for someone to guide them. One of the alien delegates, a tall being with skin like molten stone, stepped forward. His voice was deep and rough. If the seers spoke of a human, then this could mean a bond between Earth and Veyra. Or it could mean danger. We must not ignore the possibility that this prophecy is a trap, perhaps even shaped by human ambition. Another delegate, a feathery figure from the Havel species, shook her head. Humans are too new to the stars to weave such plans. Perhaps the seers truly saw this man. The hall began to stir with debate. Voices rose, some suspicious, others intrigued. The queen let them speak for a time, then raised her hand again. Silence returned as swiftly as a tide pulled back to sea. Captain Rowan, she said, you are caught in words not of your making. Yet words can bind as surely as chains. If my daughter insists you are tied to her destiny, then you will stand before the trial of echoes. Only then will we know the truth of your heart. Rowan's brow furrowed. What is this trial? The queen's eyes softened, though her tone remained strong. It is an ancient rite. The trial does not judge by strength of body, but by the light within. It shows the truth hidden behind masks. If you are false, it will reveal it. If you are true, we will see it also. The hall whispered again. Many nodded, for the trial of echoes was a respected test among the Veyrans. It had unmasked liars and proven the loyalty of rulers for generations. Rowan met the queen's gaze without fear. If this is your way, I will stand in your trial. I have nothing to hide. The princess smiled and squeezed his arm with pride. I knew you would not turn away. The queen regarded Rowan for a long moment, then gave a single nod. So be it. At dawn tomorrow, you will stand in the Chamber of Echoes. Until then, you are our guest. Guards, see that he is shown proper quarters. And my daughter, her tone sharpened slightly as she looked at Illyra. You will remain in your chambers. We will speak of this matter privately. Reluctantly, the princess released Rowan's arm. Her bright eyes never left him, though, even as a servant gently guided her away. She looked back once before disappearing behind the tall doors, leaving Rowan alone under the gaze of the court. As the queen turned to return to her throne, the delegates broke into hushed conversations once more. Some were curious, others doubtful, but all were eager to see the trial unfold. To them, it was more than a family matter. It was a moment that might change the balance between humans and Veyrans. Two guards stepped forward, motioning for Rowan to follow. They led him through winding corridors of shining stone and crystal. The palace was vast, filled with murals of past rulers and glowing patterns etched into the walls. Rowan walked silently, his mind heavy with thought. He had come to represent Earth in simple talks, yet now he was drawn into prophecy and trial. When they reached his guest quarters, the guards bowed and left without a word. The room was spacious, with a wide balcony overlooking the city of Vera. Towers of glass and metal rose into the sky, their lights shining like constellations. Skycraft drifted between them in graceful arcs, leaving trails of pale fire. Rowan stepped onto the balcony and rested his hands on the rail. The night air was cool, carrying the faint sound of distant bells. He thought of Earth, of his crew waiting on the ship, of the unexpected path his mission had taken. Was the princess simply a child lost in stories, or had fate truly tied him to her as she believed? He did not know. Yet one thing was certain: tomorrow, the trial of echoes would decide not just his place in this palace, but perhaps the future bond between two worlds. As Rowan gazed at the alien city, a quiet resolve settled in him. Whatever came, he would face it with the same strength that had carried humanity into the stars. Dawn arrived with a pale glow spreading across the skies of Vera. The city stirred slowly, its towers catching the morning light, their crystal surfaces shining like fire in water. Bells rang from tall spires, announcing the start of the day. In the palace, servants moved quickly, preparing the halls for what many considered a historic moment. The trial of echoes had not been called in years, and now a human was to stand within it. Captain Rowan rose early from his guest quarters. He had slept little, his mind restless with questions. What exactly was this trial? How could it show the truth of his heart? He washed and dressed in his uniform, choosing no ornaments, no weapons. He wanted to face the day as he was, nothing more. 2 guards arrived to escort him. Their golden armor reflected the first light of the sun as they guided him through winding corridors. Rowan walked silently, his steps steady though his thoughts churned beneath the surface. The Chamber of Echoes stood at the heart of the palace. Its doors were carved from black stone, etched with glowing lines that seemed to shift like rivers of light. As the doors opened, Rowan stepped into a vast circular room. The ceiling rose high above, painted with stars that glimmered faintly as if alive. The floor was smooth crystal, polished until it reflected every figure like water. Around the chamber sat the delegates of the council. They filled the curved seats, their many forms creating a living ring of judgment. At the far end, upon a raised platform, stood Queen Solana. She wore a robe of deep blue trimmed with silver, her crown resting lightly on her head. Her gaze was sharp, yet unreadable. The princess, Elora, sat near her mother, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. When she saw Rowan enter, her face lit with quiet hope. The queen raised her hand. The trial of echoes begins. Captain Rowan of Earth, step forward. Rowan obeyed, walking to the center of the chamber. He stood on the crystal floor, his reflection below him clear and sharp. The doors closed with a heavy sound, sealing the chamber. An elder priest of Vera approached, carrying a staff topped with a glowing sphere. His voice was deep and ceremonial. The Chamber of Echoes hears what is hidden. It does not judge with words, nor with power of arms. It shows truth. If your spirit is false, it will shatter the light. If your spirit is true, it will shine. Do you stand ready? I stand ready, Rowan said firmly. The priest struck the staff against the floor. A deep tone filled the chamber, resonating through the crystal walls. The lights above brightened, and the air seemed to hum. Rowan felt the vibration in his chest, a pulse that reached into his very bones. The priest stepped back. Then speak. Tell this chamber who you are. Rowan drew a breath. He looked not at the queen, not at the delegates, but at the chamber itself. I am Captain Rowan, born of Earth. My people are new among the stars, yet we seek to walk among them with honor. I did not come here to deceive or to steal. I came to speak for my world, to listen, and to learn. I did not know your princess before yesterday. I do not know why she calls me father. But I know this: I will not harm her. I will not harm your people. I stand here with nothing hidden. The hum of the chamber deepened. Light spread across the floor, rising like mist. The crystal reflected not only Rowan's body but shapes from his past. The delegates leaned forward as visions took form. They saw Rowan as a young man standing on the deck of a ship, training with others. They saw him leading a rescue on a storm-ridden world, carrying wounded strangers through wind and rain. They saw him refusing orders once, when those orders would have cost innocent lives. His choices, his courage, and his mistakes appeared like shadows of memory. The princess watched with wide eyes. She whispered softly, "I knew it." The queen remained silent, her gaze fixed on the visions. Finally the chamber grew still. The mist faded. Rowan stood once more alone in the center. Yet above him, a single light remained. It glowed clear and steady, neither flickering nor breaking. The priest raised his staff. The chamber speaks. This man hides no false heart. His spirit is true. Whispers rose among the council. Some nodded in respect, others frowned with doubt, but none could deny the judgment. The trial of echoes had spoken clearly. The queen rose from her seat. Her expression remained calm, yet something in her eyes had shifted. She looked at Rowan with a new measure of thought. The trial clears you of deception. You are not a liar, nor a thief of titles. Yet it does not tell us why the seers chose you. That answer remains hidden. Rowan bowed slightly. Perhaps the future will reveal it. For now, I can only promise what I already have, that I wish no harm to your daughter or your people. Before the queen could respond, the princess stood. Her voice rang with conviction. It is enough. The trial shows he is true. He is the one from the visions. He is my father. Her words carried across the chamber like a flame leaping to dry wood. Some delegates chuckled softly, dismissing her as a child lost in prophecy. Others looked troubled, knowing the power of belief in a royal heir. The queen lifted her hand, and silence fell again. She looked at her daughter, then at Rowan. For a long moment she said nothing. Finally she spoke. Very well. The trial is complete. Captain Rowan, you are cleared of suspicion. You may walk freely in this palace until the council concludes. But know this: words like father and destiny carry heavy weight. Do not take them lightly. I will not, Rowan said. The session ended. Guards opened the doors, and the council began to disperse. Delegates murmured among themselves, eager to return to their worlds with news of the human who passed the trial. As Rowan left the chamber, the princess caught his hand for a brief moment. Her small voice reached him before the guards led her away. You see, the chamber knows. You belong here. Rowan did not answer at once. He looked into her eyes and saw nothing but faith. For her, the matter was decided. For him, questions still remained. But as he walked back into the light of the palace corridors, he felt the weight of the trial lift from him, replaced by something else: a growing sense that his life had just taken a path he could never have imagined. The night after the trial was heavy with whispers. Across the palace, servants spoke quietly about the human who had stood in the chamber of echoes and walked away unbroken. Delegates returned to their ships carrying tales for their home worlds. Some admired Rowan's honesty. Others feared what his presence might mean. For the people of Vera, the story spread through the streets like fire. A stranger from the stars had been tested and found true. Rowan sat on the balcony of his quarters, staring out over the glowing city. Lights shimmered along the towers like rivers of fireflies. Skycraft drifted between them, their engines leaving faint trails in the dark. He should have felt relief after the trial, yet his thoughts remained restless. Why had the chamber shown his past so clearly? Why had it left the single light shining above him like a mark? He wondered if it was proof of destiny or simply proof of his own choices. Far above the planet, hidden in the silence of space, another story unfolded. A fleet drifted just beyond the system's edge. Their ships were sleek and black, built to hide against the stars. These were the Veyron's rivals, the Kale Dominion. For generations they had watched, waiting for weakness. Now their attention sharpened. In the command chamber of the lead vessel, Admiral Terros studied the reports. His species had dark, smooth skin and eyes like polished metal. Around him, officers worked in silence. On their screens, images of the Veyron palace flickered. The trial, the human, the princess calling him father, all had been observed by hidden probes. "This changes things," Terros said, his voice low but steady. "A human tied to the throne. Prophecy or not, the people will believe it. Belief is power. If they unite behind this stranger, Veyra grows stronger. We cannot allow it." An officer bowed his head. "What are your orders?" Terros's eyes gleamed. "We will test the human. If he is weak, their faith will crumble. If he is strong, then we must strike before he grows roots in their court." While the Kale plotted in the shadows, Rowan's life in the palace continued. The queen had not spoken much to him after the trial, yet her gaze followed him in council meetings. He felt her measuring his words, weighing his presence. She was cautious, but she did not push him away. The princess, however, sought him out whenever she could. She would appear in the gardens, waiting for him with bright eyes. She asked endless questions about Earth, about oceans and forests, about the skies filled with birds instead of ships. Rowan answered patiently, though sometimes he felt a pang of longing for home. One evening, as they walked through the palace gardens, Elora stopped beside a pool of clear water. Stars reflected on its surface, turning the pool into a mirror of the night sky. She looked at him seriously, her usual brightness softened. "Do you believe in the visions now?" she asked. Rowan crouched beside her, watching the reflection ripple. "I believe you have a brave heart. And I believe you trust what you saw. That matters more than what I believe." She frowned slightly. "But the vision said you would guide me when danger rises. If you do not believe, will you still stand with me when it comes?" Rowan met her eyes. "Yes. Whatever danger comes, I will stand with you. That I promise." Her face lit with a smile. "Then it is true. You are my father." Rowan did not argue. He only smiled faintly and let her belief rest. The queen appeared from the shadows of the garden, her robe trailing across the stone path. Rowan rose and bowed. Her expression was unreadable, but her eyes softened briefly as she looked at her daughter. "Elora, return to your chambers," the queen said. "I will speak with the captain." The princess obeyed, though not without a glance back at Rowan. When she was gone, silence settled over the garden. The queen studied Rowan for a long moment before speaking. "You did not ask for this. Yet now you are bound to it. My daughter believes you are her father. The people begin to whisper the same. And prophecy is a powerful chain, Captain. It can bind even a queen." Rowan's voice was calm. I did not come to steal her trust. I only wish to protect her. If danger comes, I will not run. The queen's eyes narrowed. Be careful. The Kale Dominion waits like wolves. They watch for weakness. If they sense that you are more than a guest, they will move. Rowan nodded slowly. Then perhaps it is not only the princess who needs a protector. For the first time, the queen allowed a faint smile to touch her lips, though it faded quickly. We will see if your promise holds true. For now, remember this: you may have passed the trial, but the real test has not yet come. As she walked away, Rowan felt the weight of her words settle heavily on his shoulders. In the days that followed, unease spread through the palace. Reports came of Kale ships near the border. Trade routes were disrupted, and outposts sent warnings of shadows in the stars. The council debated endlessly, some urging caution, others calling for war. The queen remained steady, but her eyes grew sharper with each passing day. Rowan began to notice subtle changes. Guards walked with greater tension. The city's people whispered of conflict. And through it all, the princess stayed close to him, her faith in him unshaken. He began to feel not only her trust but also the weight of responsibility that came with it. One night, as he stood once more on his balcony, Rowan looked to the horizon where the sky met the stars. He sensed that the queen was right. The real test was coming, and it would not be a trial of echoes in a crystal chamber. It would be fire and steel, a storm that could decide the future of two peoples. Far beyond that horizon, Admiral Taros gave his command. The Kale fleet turned toward Vera, their ships cutting through the void like knives. The watchers had seen enough. Now they would strike. The council chamber was tense. Delegates sat in restless silence as messengers delivered the latest reports. Kale ships had crossed into neutral space. Outposts had fallen quiet. Merchants spoke of attacks on trade routes. The shadow that the queen had warned about was no longer distant. It was closing in. Queen Solana stood tall at the center of the chamber. Her robe of silver and blue flowed around her as she raised a hand for silence. The Kale Dominion prepares for war. They strike at our borders, test our defenses, and spread fear through our people. We cannot ignore this. We must decide now: will we meet them in battle, or will we bend to their will? Murmurs filled the hall. Some delegates urged caution, claiming the Kale fleet was too strong. Others demanded swift retaliation, eager to protect Vera's honor. The queen listened to all, her face calm though her eyes burned with resolve. Rowan sat quietly near the edge of the chamber. He had no official voice in the council, yet every eye turned to him from time to time. His presence after the trial of echoes had changed the atmosphere. Whispers of the prophecy spread through the city, and many now saw him as a figure of fate. When the voices of the delegates began to clash louder, the queen raised her hand again. "Captain Rowan," she said, her voice carrying across the hall. "You are not of our people, yet destiny has placed you among us. You have faced war before. Tell this council, what would you do?" The chamber fell silent. Rowan rose slowly to his feet. He looked around the circle of faces, alien yet familiar in their fear and uncertainty. "I will not speak as a ruler," he said. "I will speak as a soldier. The Kale do not test you because they doubt your strength. They test you because they hope you will hesitate. If you hesitate, they will strike harder. If you run, they will chase. The only choice is to stand and fight." A murmur ran through the chamber. Some nodded in agreement, others frowned. Rowan continued, his voice steady. "War is never without cost. I have seen men fall, worlds burn, and cities reduced to silence. But I have also seen courage. I have seen the weak rise to defend what they love. You have something the Kale cannot understand: unity. They rule by fear. You rule with trust. That will be your strength if you hold to it. His words carried across the chamber like a spark falling into dry wood. Delegates whispered to one another, their tones shifting. The Queen studied Rowan carefully, her expression unreadable. Then the princess spoke. She stood from her seat beside the Queen, her young voice clear and strong. He is right. The Kale will not stop if we bow to them. They will only take more. But if we fight for every child, every family, every dream of Vera. And I know we will not stand alone. My father will stand with us. The chamber stirred with gasps. The word father echoed again, but this time it was not whispered in disbelief. Some delegates looked uncertain, but others found comfort in her faith. The Queen raised her hand once more. Silence fell. She looked first at her daughter, then at Rowan. If we choose to fight, it will not be council voices or royal words that win the day. It will be soldiers who bleed and die. Captain Rowan, you have spoken with conviction. Will you stand with us, not as guest, but as commander? Rowan hesitated. He felt the weight of her words settle on him like armor. He had not come here for war. He had not sought command of alien soldiers. Yet he saw the fear in the delegate's eyes, the resolve in the Queen's gaze, and the trust shining in the princess's face. Yes, Rowan said at last. I will stand with you. I will fight beside your soldiers. If the Kale come, they will not find you alone. The chamber erupted. Some delegates cheered, others argued, but the Queen's voice cut through them all. Then it is decided. We will prepare for war. The council stands with Vera. That night, the palace was alive with activity. Messengers rushed through the halls, summoning generals and calling fleets to readiness. Soldiers gathered in training yards, their armor gleaming under torchlight. Engineers prepared defense grids, their hands quick as they worked. Rowan walked among them, speaking with commanders, studying maps of the system, and sharing strategies drawn from his years of service. He spoke plainly, never boasting, but his calm presence steadied the officers. They began to look to him not only as an outsider, but as one of their own. In the quiet hours before dawn, Rowan found himself once more in the garden. The princess waited for him there, sitting by the pool of stars. She looked up as he approached, her eyes bright with both excitement and worry. You said you would stand with me when danger came, she said softly. And now it is here. Rowan nodded. It is here. But we will face it together. Are you afraid? She asked. He looked at the reflection of the stars on the water. Yes. Fear comes to everyone before battle. But courage is not the absence of fear. It is the choice to stand anyway. She smiled faintly. Then we will be brave. For a moment they sat in silence, listening to the distant sounds of soldiers preparing for war. The princess leaned against him lightly, as if finding comfort in his steady presence. Rowan looked at her and felt the strange bond between them grow stronger. He did not fully understand it, yet he could not deny it. Far above, the Kale fleet drew closer. Admiral Taros watched from the bridge of his vessel, his eyes cold as iron. So the human chooses to stand with them, he said. Good. Then he will fall with them. The stars ahead darkened as the fleet moved into attack formation. The shadow had risen, and soon it would descend upon Vera. The skies above Vera darkened with the approach of the Kale fleet. Their ships cut through the stars like black blades, engines glowing with cruel fire. On the palace walls, horns sounded. Across the city, soldiers rushed into formation, weapons gleaming, armor shining beneath the light of towers. The people of Vera had prepared, but even so, fear ran through their hearts. The Kale Dominion was feared across the stars, and this was the first time their fleet came in full force. From the balcony of the command tower, Rowan stood with Queen Solana and Princess Elara. Below them, the city bristled with defenses, energy cannons, shield towers, and legions of soldiers. Above, the Veran fleet rose from its docks, hundreds of silver ships taking to the sky. The Queen's voice was calm though her eyes were sharp. The Kale strike with numbers and strength. But we will not bow. This is our home. Rowan studied the battle map projected before them. Red markers showed the Kale fleet pressing into orbit. Blue markers, the Veran defenders, shifted into a defensive arc. He could see the plan forming. The Varans would hold their ground, using shields and heavy fire to repel the first assault. But Rowan knew the Kale. They thrived on overwhelming pressure. They would not stop with one strike. They would push again and again until the defenders broke. Your formation is strong, Rowan said, but the Kale will try to split your lines. If they cut you in half, the shield towers will fall. The Queen turned to him. What do you suggest? Rowan moved pieces on the map. Keep the main fleet close, but send smaller wings wide. Hit their supply ships at the rear. Without fuel and energy, their front line will weaken. At the same time, your ground forces must prepare for boarding strikes. The Kale will not only fight in space. They will try to land here. The Queen listened carefully. She nodded once. Then you will lead the ground defense. My generals command the skies. You will hold the city. Rowan bowed his head slightly. I will. The princess clutched his arm. And I will be with you. Rowan knelt before her, placing his hand gently on her shoulder. No, Elara. Your place is with your mother. The people need to see their future queen safe. That is how they will keep hope. Her eyes glistened, but she did not argue. Instead, she whispered, then promise me you will come back. Rowan looked into her eyes and said, I promise. Moments later, alarms blared across the city. The Kale fleet had entered orbit. Bright fire streaked across the skies as ships clashed. The battle for Vera had begun. Rowan moved quickly to the front lines. The palace gates opened to reveal the wide defense walls and soldiers ready for battle. He walked among them, his voice carrying steady and calm. Today you fight not only for the queen and the princess. You fight for your homes, your families, and your children. The Kale believe they can break you with fear. But you are more than fear. You are Vera. Stand firm, and they will see what it means to fight a people who will not fall. The soldiers struck their weapons against their shields in answer, a deep thunder rolling through the streets. Rowan felt their courage rise. He took his place at the command post, ready to face whatever came. The first wave struck like a storm. Kale ships pierced through the atmosphere, their hulls black and sharp. Energy fire rained down, exploding against shield towers. Troop transports broke through the clouds, dropping warriors in heavy armor. The defenders raised their weapons as the enemy landed. Rowan stood at the center of the defense line. Hold the gates, he commanded. Archers, fire. Arrows tipped with energy streaked into the sky, striking the first wave of Kale troops. The clash was brutal. Metal rang against metal, energy blades lit the air, and the cries of battle shook the ground. Rowan fought beside the soldiers, his rifle steady, his movements sharp. He was no stranger to war, and his calm presence steadied those around him. The Kale were fierce, but Rowan's strategy began to turn the tide. Small squads broke away from the main defense, striking at the landing points before the Kale could gather strength. Shield towers held firm under his orders, rotating fire to cover weak points. Bit by bit, the first wave was repelled. But the second wave came swiftly. Larger transports descended, smashing through outer defenses. Kale warriors stormed the streets, forcing the defenders back step by step. Rowan saw the line begin to buckle. He climbed onto the wall and raised his voice. Do not give ground. Every step they take is one you must take back. Stand together. The soldiers rallied. Inspired by his words, they pushed forward again. Rowan fought at their side, his rifle blazing, his commands sharp. Where others faltered, he stood. Where fear threatened, he spoke. And the defenders held. In the palace, the queen watched the battle unfold through shimmering screens. She saw Rowan leading her soldiers as if he had always been one of them. His presence was like a pillar holding the line. For the first time, she understood why her daughter had called him father. He was not bound by blood, yet he carried the spirit of one who protects without thought of self. The battle raged through the night. Fires lit the city, smoke rising into the sky. Rowan's voice never faltered, his commands never wavered. The Kale pushed harder, but each time they met the unyielding will of humans and Varans standing side by side. At last, the Kale withdrew for the moment, pulling back their forces to regroup. The defenders, battered and weary, stood on the walls victorious for now. Cheers rose, though many knew it was not the end. Rowan lowered his rifle and looked over the battlefield. The city still stood. The people still lived. But the Kale would return. He knew this fight was far from finished. As he walked back toward the palace, the soldiers saluted him, their eyes filled with respect. He was no longer a stranger. He was their commander. In the palace, the princess ran to meet him, her eyes bright with relief. You kept your promise, she whispered. Rowan placed a hand on her shoulder. For now. But the war is not over. We must be ready. Above them, in the cold void of space, Admiral Taros watched the retreating lines of his fleet. His eyes narrowed. The human holds them. Very well. Then we will break him. The storm was far from over. The hardest test was yet to come. The city of Varo lay scarred but unbroken. Smoke drifted above rooftops, and shattered stones marked where the Kale had struck hardest. Yet the walls still stood, the shield towers still glowed, and the people still walked the streets with courage. The first battle had ended, but all knew the war was far from done. In the command hall, Queen Solana met with her generals. Maps of the skies floated in shimmering light, showing the Kale fleet gathered beyond the planet. They had not left. They had only paused. Their main force still waited, ready to strike again. Rowan stood among them, his uniform scorched and torn from the fight. He looked at the map with steady eyes. They will come again soon. They lost the first wave, but they will not give up. This time they will throw everything they have. The Queen nodded. Our shields are weakened, our soldiers weary. Another strike of such power may break us. Silence fell over the hall. The generals exchanged uneasy glances. Some spoke of retreating to the mountains. Others suggested opening peace talks, though none believed the Kale would honor them. Rowan stepped forward. If you retreat, they will follow. If you bend, they will break you. The only chance is to strike first. Not from fear, but from resolve. Hit their fleet before they descend again. Show them that Vera does not wait to be hunted. The Queen studied him carefully. You would lead such a strike, yes, Rowan said. But not with your fleet alone. The Kale expect your ships to defend the city. They will not expect humans to fight beside you. I will take a small force, slip past their main line, and strike their command ship. Without their admiral, their fleet will falter. The generals murmured, some doubtful, some intrigued. To attack the Kale flagship was bold, perhaps reckless. Yet boldness was often what the Kale did not expect. At last, the Queen spoke. Very well. You will have your chance. Choose your soldiers and prepare. At dawn, you fly. That night, Rowan walked through the quiet gardens of the palace. The stars shone above, cold and distant, yet filled with promise. Elara found him there, her steps light but her eyes serious. You are leaving, she said. Rowan nodded. Yes. To end this war, I must face the Kale where they are strongest. Her voice trembled slightly. But you promised you would not leave me. Rowan knelt before her, meeting her eyes. I promised I would protect you. Sometimes, to keep that promise, I must walk into danger. But hear me, Elara. No matter what happens, you will never be alone. You are stronger than you know. You are the heart of your people. Even without me, you will carry them forward. Tears shone in her eyes, but she nodded bravely. Then I will wait for you. Because I believe you will return. The next dawn, the strike force departed. Rowan led a squadron of sleek Veyran ships, their silver hulls glinting as they cut through the void. His own vessel, smaller but swift, carried a hand-picked crew of both Veyran soldiers and his human companions from Earth. Together, they formed a bond of two worlds standing as one. The Kale fleet loomed ahead, a wall of black steel lit with fire. At its center, the flagship towered like a fortress among the stars. Admiral Taros watched their approach with cold eyes. The human comes, he said softly. Just as I wished. End him. Kale ships surged forward, weapons blazing. Rowan's squadron met them head-on. Space lit with fire as cannons roared, missiles streaked, and shields flared bright. Rowan's voice carried through the comms, calm and sharp. Break through. Do not linger. The flagship is our goal. His ship darted through the chaos, weaving past bursts of light and streaks of energy. Kale fighters swarmed, but Rowan's crew fought with precision, striking hard and slipping past. Slowly, painfully, they carved a path toward the heart of the fleet. On the flagship, Admiral Taros watched with growing fury. How does he press so far? He is only one man. Yet it was not one man alone. It was the unity of two peoples' human courage and Veyran strength. Where one faltered, the other rose. Where one shield failed, another held. Together, they drove forward. At last, Rowan's ship reached the flagship's hull. Grapples struck metal. Airlocks hissed. Rowan led his soldiers inside. The corridors shook with alarms as Kale warriors swarmed to meet them. The battle was fierce. Energy blades clashed, rifles blazed, and the ship trembled under the weight of combat. Rowan fought at the front, his eyes fixed on the path ahead. Every step forward was earned with blood and fire. Yet he did not stop. At last, he reached the command chamber. The doors burst open, and there stood Admiral Taros, tall and cold, his blade glowing with cruel light. "You are far from your world, human," Taros said. "This is not your fight." Rowan raised his weapon. "It is my fight, because I chose it. And because your war would destroy what I swore to protect." The two clashed. Blade against rifle, strength against resolve. Taros was powerful, his strikes heavy and swift. But Rowan fought with the will of one who carried more than his own life. He carried the trust of a princess, the faith of a queen, and the hope of a people. The battle raged, sparks flying, steel ringing. At last, with a final strike, Rowan disarmed the admiral and drove him back. Taros staggered, his weapon falling from his grasp. "You fight like one born to this throne," the admiral said bitterly. "No," Rowan answered. "I fight like a man who refuses to bow." With those words, Taros fell. The Kale flagship shuddered. Leaderless, its fleet broke apart. Some ships fled into the dark. Others surrendered. The siege of Vero was broken. When Rowan returned to the planet, the city erupted in joy. Bells rang, fires lit the skies, and the people cheered his name. Yet Rowan did not seek glory. He sought only the princess, who ran to meet him in the palace courtyard. "You came back," she whispered, her eyes shining. "I promised," Rowan said, kneeling to meet her gaze. The queen stepped forward, her voice carrying across the gathered crowd. "Vera owes its life to you, Captain Rowan. You stood when others faltered. You fought not for crown or wealth, but for the bond of trust. In doing so, you became more than a guest. You became part of this family." The people cheered louder, their voices rising like thunder. Rowan stood tall, the princess's hand in his, the queen's gaze steady upon him. For the first time, he felt not like a visitor in this world, but like one who belonged. Far above, the stars shone bright, silent witnesses to the unity of two worlds. Humanity had come to the galaxy as strangers, but on this day, through courage and choice, they had become something more.